Nice. Nice. What's up, dudes? Oh, we're leaving that one.
Cool.
Steve Marchena, thanks so much for coming back by, man.
Thanks
Good to see you, bud.
Good to see you.
We were just doing a little blues stuff earlier, and we sort of kept on with the motif. So we were just talking blues because, as I think everyone knows, very sad to hear of the passing of B.B. King. So I think, we're all maybe have the blues on the mind a little bit more than usual, And we were just talking about the blues, and maybe we can talk a little bit more about it. What's your take on blues and blues in general?
It's very important. It's very important whether you're playing within the blues style or whether you're playing jazz, whether you're playing rock. It's certainly the root of American music. We could say that, like all the forms you had mentioned before. Hip hop and you really can't get away with it. The other thing I was saying was that is these African rhythms, and essentially this 1-4-5. That's part of the European classical tradition. This concept, I'll say, they do this thing with theme and variations in classical music. Well, you'll have a chord progression, and the chord progression will keep on repeating.
Right.
Maybe a 12-bar chord progression, and then we'll do variations on that. So it's I love blues. We're talking about Robert Johnson, so important. Led Zeppelin.
I mean, certainly it's its influence on rock and roll, especially through the 50s, 60s, 70s, and really even into the 80s, very, very prominent. Yes. It really was, sort of a starting point, I think, for a lot of, those sort of chord progressions and motifs. Just the love of the pentatonic scale, but we add that little tritone, right?
Absolutely.
To really spice it up a little bit, bring out a little bit more flavor. That blues note really does make a difference.
And you figure, talking about the 12-bar blues progression, in tonal music, the whole thing is the journey back to the one.
Right.
And that's the basis of what that...
Yeah, you come full circle.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Go out for a little stroll here, a little stroll there, a little stroll there, then eventually make your way back home again.
Right.
And there's
action to it. I'm thinking about specifically the 12-bar blues progression in maybe its most common form. If you looked at that, the Brady Bunch where they show all the the Bradys and everything. Yeah, so if you look at the 12-bar blues like that, you have this top line, it's about the one chord. Like that. The next line, you have the 4 chord and the 1 chord.
Right.
So, wow, now the changes are happening twice as fast. There's pacing going on here.
Right.
And then in the bottom line, then maybe there's 3 chords there. And,
right.
But somebody like John Lee Hooker would play the blues on 1 chord, but he'd be implying these changes.
Well, I think like with most music, it's all about tension and resolution. So you start at the 1 and you're at rest, and then you sort of go to the 4 and you introduce a little bit of tension. You go back to the 1 for a little bit of rest. You go back to the 4 for a little bit of tension. Then you go to the 5 for the most tension.
Right.
Resolve sometimes back to the 1, but even sometimes you gently step back down by going to the 4
exactly.
and then really coming back to the 1 again.
Right.
And it's just this tension and resolution that you want. I mean, I had a guitar teacher once say that if you went like a...
Right.
It'd kill you.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Right.
I got a story. Wait.
You want that resolution, no?
Can I get a clean sound for a second?
Yeah.
I want to tell a story about that.
Why don't you hit that for 1 second?
I'll give a shout out. Maybe I'll tag her in the video. This old girlfriend of mine, Christine Johnson. She was my girlfriend for a couple semesters at Berkeley. I want to play jazz.
I can't.
Yeah, this is good. I can back it off a little.
Hold on, I can get you. I should probably choose.
So this girl, Christine Johnson. Hi, Christine. She was a clarinetist at Berkeley, and we'd hang out in the practice room. My teacher, his thing was playing jazz chords in different inversions. If I was supposed to play G minor, and if it went like this, He'd say, "What are you playing, a washboard? We're playing jazz here." So if I was supposed to play G minor, he'd want. But anyway, I'd only learned a certain number of those chords, and we'd be in the practice room, and I'd play I'd play this, and she'd be she's like, why didn't you? She was hearing it as a melody. She wanted to hear that.
The leading tone.
Right, so she really wanted that chord there.
Right.
And as guitar players, we have this tendency that we play chords as if they're isolated events. So that you have voice leading like. So it's like, versus you hear this melody doesn't really make too much sense.
Right.
I could have played those same chords. You know what I'm saying? With voice leading it. So anyway, she taught me something about voice leading, and
well, voice leading is a whole art unto itself. I mean, there are guys who just do their arranging, right? That's where it's sort of the voice leading and arranging to accommodate the melody, really bolster the melody. You know, that's a whole art form unto itself. I mean, that's a class at Berkeley, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, actually, I'd say that in the performance major, they'll sort of these proficiencies, they make you do a lot of them. But I think no matter what you study there, you have to do some proficiencies. Part of that is playing scales and positions, and I'll tell you a good way to work on that. You figure out what month you're in, and then if it's in January, you're like, okay, I'm going to work in the 1st and 13th positions. If it's February, 2nd and 14th positions.
Right.
But then here's the trick. Sort of what I aspire to is that you could name any position and any chord, and even if I can't voice that in like a closed voicing, I'll be able to play that chord. Let's try that. Name a chord.
C minor 7.
C minor 7, and name a position on the guitar.
9th.
So if I put my hand in the 9th position, there's a couple ways I could get it. I could stretch the pointer finger.
Right.
That's still technical. Or
I wanted to be slightly off of its position.
Right. So I guess I'd have to grab it like there it is. Right. So it's not an easy one. I might not play that voicing, but the reason I might not play that fingering.
Well, there's a voicing at every fret.
There's a voicing at every fret.
You might have to stretch one.
Yeah.
One either direction, either up one or down one.
Right.
But there probably is a voicing at every fret.
Whatever note you're looking for is already underneath your fingers.
Right.
So if you're playing this and you're like, oh, we changed to G, let's move over here.
Right.
As an artistic decision, if you decide you want to move to another position, great. A lot of times it's not an artistic decision, though. It's the person who'll say, well, this is the place that I know that...
Well, for me, it's usually just a comfort zone, right?
Right,
it's
but the voice leading, you talk about... Here's the voice leading...
Voice leading be damned. Right. I want to get the chord, you know?
Right, exactly.
I think that's what a lot of guitar players go through.
Yes.
You know, with voice leading, they want to do that, right? Or they'd like to be hip on that. But it's harder, and you're out there, and everything's going by in real time,
right?
And you start washboarding it.
But when you practice, though, you think about that. I mean, like to me, a really basic one would be, if your chord progression, if I was going like C minor to B flat minor, you'd think you'd move that way, but you don't have to. You can.
Right.
That's the thing is, sort of think where the root motion is going. And go the opposite way, the contrary motion. It's the same idea that Bach piece. So the first thing that's happening is we're going G, F sharp, E, and the same line is happening backwards. E, F sharp, G.
Right.
It's a cool sound.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. What's that? Contrapuntal motion?
Just contrary motion. I got to turn around here and say, let's see, this would be in the A. So if you think about it, if it was a blues in A, the turnaround you might go like A, D, A, E. And I could play contrary motion here where I'll play with and a pedal tone, so like right? So it shows up all over the place.
I used to have a few of those down. I had worked out a bunch of things where I would go up the scale and down the scale at the same time and sort of meet in the middle.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, that's great.
Just using dyads.
Yes, yeah.
But God, I haven't done it in so long I forget them. But I had like a blues one sort of worked out, where I would sort of, and it would wind up at like the 3 and the 7,
right.
Or, something like that, or the 1 and the 6, it would end up somewhere.
Right.
And it would be this nice semi-resolution.
Right.
Right? The sort of the false resolution and then to the real resolution.
Absolutely.
You know? Yeah, maybe we should talk about that a little bit. Sort of like, you know, you hear that sometimes where there's almost like a false resolution, right? So the song's going,
Deceptive, right?
yeah. So the song's going through and it's resolving, but the last time around,
Yes.
there's a little extra journey where sometimes they'll go to like the 2 minor,
Yes,
right? And they
yes.
really start to move around, you know, and then sort of and it's a lot of times like a substitute, right? So it's just a little bit extra journey to
Yes.
get back to the one again. I can't think of a song right now, but there's thousands of them out there like that. It's really popular in pop,
Yes.
you know, where it's the straight up thing, but on that very last one, there's a little bit extra just to bring it around.
I think it was Bach that said, great music is 50% surprise and 50% satisfaction.
Right.
So there's this idea that if you're playing something, you know, if you listen to somebody play, it's a natural thing to sort of like, in your mind, you want to sort of second guess or predict where they're going to go next.
Oh, yeah. Just like a plot in a movie. You're trying to predict where
Right.
the movie's going.
And if it's entirely predictable,
Right.
if you know, like, if a guitar player is always using the same lick in every solo, then you're like, yeah, okay, they're gonna. Well, no, I'm saying it's you can hear this type of thing where you become
What?
predictable.
That's crazy. Who would ever do that?
Well, there's variety of what you're doing. I'm saying it's. I can't think of an example. Like sometimes, you know, sorry kids, but sometimes I'll get kids will do that because they just learned
Right.
finger tapping or something. So
right.
now you better believe if they play a solo, it's their one and only
nothing
chance.
went from as cool to cliche faster than finger tapping.
But nobody does it live anymore now. You
No,
don't. So,
yeah.
so it's
Yeah.
actually. I think it's cool. I think it's cool again. If you get a good
yeah,
song with it,
again, it could come full circle, right? Where it becomes lame, and then, you know, sooner or later it sort of comes back, and what's old is new again.
right,
Because there's a whole generation that wasn't bored by it already.
right. I love finger tapping.
I love finger tapping too. My favorite finger tapping guy might be either Reb Beach, because I thought he did a lot with it. He
Yeah.
didn't have the shred style, but he made up for it with the tapping.
Yeah.
And Steve Lynch, which
Yeah.
I think is an unsung
I
hero.
had his book there, like two-handed.
Did you go
tapping.
to the Did you go to the?
Did he do
seminar?
it? I didn't.
He did.
No, I saw
yeah.
Paul Gilbert there. But
I would say that at the music store, we had Paul Gilbert come by for one, and we had Steve Lynch come by for the other. And the one thing I thought Steve Lynch was really good at was not just, you know, talking about technique and things like, which he was great, but he really got into like the music business. And he's like, listen, if you're in a band and you've been doing this for 2 years and you're pretty much not too much farther along than you were about 6 months after you started, and you're like 2 years into it, he's like, I would set a date that if you don't have a goal met by this date, just call it. It's not working.
right,
He's like, don't stick it out. He goes, move on to something else. You'll be more excited and fresher with it.
Yeah.
And you might, you know, like, he goes, you really have to set these goals. And if the goals aren't met, know when it's time to just walk away and maybe try a different project, because clearly this one isn't working out for
Right.
you. And,
I think that's good if you're willing to double down. Like, say you set a goal for 6 months out, and you realize, 5 months have gone by and you're not there yet. I think if you're going to give it a fair shake, you have to start ratcheting up the energy that you're putting into it.
oh, absolutely. And he wasn't saying 6 months. He was saying like a couple of years.
Right.
So he was basically, listen, if you're 2 or 3 years in on something, and most of your growth happened in the first 6 months.
Right.
That
happens all the time,
it does.
though. Yeah.
Yeah, and you're all excited about it, and then you sort of plateau for a little bit, and you're still maybe doing the same thing. You're playing here, playing there, doing whatever. But I think he just had a really good, I thought, attitude about the whole thing.
Yeah.
Treat it like a business.
Yes.
And
Well-
he talked about getting the importance of getting a songwriting credit,
Right. Oh, yeah.
and that he had a songwriting credit on Turn Up the Radio,
Yes.
and they had just sold it to some commercial company, and he goes, you'd never see it. He goes, it's not even here. He goes, it's in another nation.
Yeah.
He goes, but they wanted the song, so we licensed it to them. He goes, and I get a royalty for that.
Yes.
And he goes, and it's making money. He goes, earning money from music.
Yes.
And he really got into that. Have you ever earned much money from music?
From selling CDs, certainly. From teaching,
Yeah.
certainly. From performance, certainly.
Right.
Let me see about this. From a songwriting
From like
credit.
royalties, though.
Yeah,
credits?
not like a not a songwriting credit.
It's and it's one of those things where I just found out that the guy who wrote the Jeopardy theme there, what was it, Merv Griffin?
Yeah, that modulates a lot, doesn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and he was very smart. He had written a song that was a joke song called "I Have a Lovely Bunch of Coconuts."
Yes.
And it was it was like a Weird Al sort of thing. It was a joke novelty song.
Yeah.
But he saw the money he sort of pulled in from that. So when he developed Jeopardy, instead of giving them the song as along when he sold the production,
Okay.
he licensed them the song.
Okay.
Yeah. So I guess he earned in the last year of his life, from the Jeopardy song, he earned $80 million in royalties.
Oh wow. That's fantastic. That's
Pretty good.
Yeah.
It's pretty good work if you can find it. It's like he wrote the song once.
Exactly.
And it was just because it played in so many markets, and there was so many viewings of it.
Right.
In so many markets, and then, it was in syndication, and it was playing everywhere, globally.
Right.
And that even if they did something in a different language, they would still use that theme song.
Right.
So that was the song.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it goes to show you the power of. I had a friend who did that. He was trying to make money, and couldn't really make a ton of money, and he finally went to someone who was expensive. What they took for a percentage wasn't cheap, but they got his songs like in a tiny sliver of The Sopranos.
Okay.
And he wound up getting he goes, I got a pretty decent royalty check. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
He goes, it was like a real eye opener that you can actually make some decent money from music. I don't think it lasted long because it's like these residual deals only go for so long, so many pressings of the DVD or so many airings or whatever, and then they sort of phase out a little bit. But I think there's money in that. It's just breaking in. Like, how do you get in? How do you get a foot in the door for that type of stuff?
I think the first part of it would be you'd want to be writing and composing every day. Right. There's actually a story. A friend of mine plays saxophone, and he, he's done a lot of great gigs. But he recorded and toured with Frank Sinatra, and now he
pretty good.
Records and tours with Frank Jr.
Right.
Anyway, he has a friend. He was telling me, so him and his friends were out of college, and some of them, would go put a band together, get out there, be the next Aerosmith or whatever they were trying to do. And then he went into education. So he's been teaching the whole time. He was doing all the gigs. But then he had another friend that's like, I'm going to write songs. And initially the guy that was writing songs was in terrible poverty. You know what I mean? It's like, if you're not getting a check for doing that, you're not even out necessarily playing a gig.
Right.
I want to say the song was Jingle Bell. Oh, this was the thing. I think it was Jingle Bell Rock. Might have been the song this guy wrote.
Right.
And what he was writing the songs and wasn't doing anything with it. And then he just decided, it was kind of crazy. He's like, I'm going to write a Christmas song every day. And then try to pitch him, this business side of it. And, I'm sure he wrote thousands of songs that went nowhere. But I'm pretty sure it was Jingle Bell Rock. And then you talk about getting some royalty checks,
My parents were at a dinner one time, and the guy had written a Christmas novelty song. And I forget what it was. It might have been, all I want for Christmas is my 2 front teeth, or like Grandma got run over by a reindeer. It was like some silly song. I forget that. But it was a novelty song, and it didn't have, huge play. It wasn't like one of the big ones. But he said, because, I get about $12,000 a year in royalty checks from that song.
That's great.
All in the last quarter.
Yeah.
I get nothing all year, and in the last quarter, I get about 12 G's.
That makes sense. Absolutely. Yeah.
So, I mean, It's not a bad little, but again, you have to have a song that gets out there and sort of makes it. And, the industry has just been gutted by
Spotify.
by Rhapsody and things like that. I know they've been in a little bit of a tussle lately on royalty payments. And again, the artists are, Spotify wants to pay as little as they possibly can.
Right, yeah.
The artists want them to pay as much as they possibly
It's
can.
not the same. Spotify acts like they're the new WBCN, and we're just playing the music, but that's not what it is. When you can randomly access the song, right? Exactly.
You can instantly access, and you don't have to suffer through ads.
Do you remember back in the day when you might call the radio station? There was a new song by a band, and the album hadn't come out yet.
Yeah.
So if you wanted to hear it, you'd have to call up and be like, "Hey, play that song by Kingdom Come. I want to hear that."
Yeah. We used to cover that.
Get it on? Yeah, exactly. But that was a perfect example. I think there was a video, but the video wasn't even out yet. It was they were playing it on the radio.
Right.
And people were thinking, I think this I always knew it wasn't Led Zeppelin. But people were thinking
it sounded
was.
like Led Zeppelin.
I know. I could tell it wasn't Plant's voice, though.
Right,
but some people were saying, hey, I think that... And on the radio, they're like, this might be the new Led Zeppelin or whatever. But if you wanted to hear it, you had to call, and then you had to wait. And, on the internet... you go to YouTube or something, and you have to wait.
It's instant, yeah.
Well, no, I'd say you have to wait like 10 or 15 seconds till you can hear the song. On the radio, you might be waiting hours and hours.
Oh,
and the DJ doesn't get to your song.
They were hoping you were home waiting hours and hours and hours for your song to come on, so you would sit through their ads.
That's what I'm talking about.
Sit through all their other stuff. Oh, yeah. Yeah. No, wait. It's... And I think, the radio stations out there right now are a reflection of what's hot, and it's kind of depressing. I mean... I think rock might finally be dead. What are we down to? 1 or 2 rock stations here in the Boston area?
I'm going to disagree with that. Here's the thing. There's not a lot of jazz stations, but jazz isn't dead. In the Northeast, there's not a lot of country stations, but country is definitely not dead.
Well, that's funny. We had 0 country stations, and now we have 2.
Right.
We had one dance channel for the longest time,
like Jammin' or something.
Jammin' 94.5.
Yeah.
And now we've got like 3.
Yeah.
Right? The oldie station, 103, became a pop station.
Okay.
You got Kiss 108 that, went pop at some point. They were more disco, but then they sort of like went straight up where like 94.5 Jammin' went.
Yes,
they went to that same sort of, format pop, hip hop sort of stuff. But I think the former WBCN is, I think they tried like contemporary adult for a while, and I think they're at country right now.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Wait, didn't they try a sports station
No.
initially?
You remember WFNX?
Yes.
Right? So they were so FNX was an alternative, right? That might be one of the first places you'd hear Nirvana would be on FNX, right? Would be that, right? So they're like this alternative station. They went hip hop, a total like, Jammin' 94 copy.
Yes.
And they settled on country. Now they're the Bull.
The Bull?
The Bull.
FNC. Bull. That's what I say.
I mean, I am sure for some people who grew up in Boston,
sad.
That is a tragedy.
Yeah.
To have alternative music replaced with country. And country, I'm not even talking like it's the really thoughtful, well done. I mean country pop.
Right.
Where the songs are all like, oh, I'm getting drunk and you're getting divorced. And, I mean, it's just, it's like the real, basically the 94.5 Jammin' of country. Right. These sort of like vapid, here today, gone later today songs.
I got a couple thoughts. First of all, even if there were no rock stations, that wouldn't mean that rock was dead.
True.
Right?
Well, the thing
it might be
is
losing a popularity contest.
Yeah.
And the country thing, the other thing I say is, the lyrics are going to be whatever the lyrics are going to be. It's not the most important part of the music to me. What I think is really a travesty, though, I sent this article where they're saying on the country stations, their new thing is cut out all the guitar solos.
Yeah.
Yeah, now that's, if you want to offend me,
that.
what are you doing? It's to me that's where the
pretty much the
artistry
best
is.
part of the That'd be like rock and roll cutting out all the guitar solos. Now, granted, guitar players have sort of dominated. We're the only one in the band that gets a solo in every song.
Doesn't have to be that way. I think
right.
You know what? I love actually. I'll say something about hip hop now. Some of my favorite hip hop groups, the rappers would take turns and maybe give the DJ some. To me, that's the core of what ensemble music is about.
Well, that's straight up jazz.
Well,
where everyone takes a turn.
Right.
It's a part of we're all talking together, but then everyone takes a turn with their own conversation.
If you're not going to do that, why are you playing in an ensemble? It's
money.
Yeah. But I love that element in music where you pass it to the other person, and it's what's really good about ensemble music to me. And the idea of cutting out the guitar solos.
Yeah. Well, maybe we'll finish on this. Speaking of ensembles, right now you are wrangling a massive ensemble.
Yes.
Of people to do
Led Zeppelin.
But I love the concept. Why don't you talk about that a little bit and say what you...
Yeah, well, it's Tal's Top, the acoustic Led Zeppelin tribute orchestra project. We have a short season. It's just like a couple of months, but for the next 2 months...
This is the third year, right?
This is the third year, yes. Yeah, and we're doing a lot of material. So it's different material at every concert.
Right. And you've added a few more songs this year from the last 2 years.
Yes.
Right,
Yeah,
sort of built every year.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun.
You may not know the number off the top, but do you know the total number of songs you guys?
I want to say it's about 35 songs that are in the repertoire for this year.
Right.
There's some songs that we've experimented with that we're not doing this year, but about 35. So last Sunday we played like 19 of them.
Right.
So it's like over half of the program. But that was a lot. We played for 3 hours on Sunday. It was crazy too. I think I got a little bit of some color in my skin from sitting out.
Right, because you guys practice outdoors a lot because there's so many people.
Absolutely.
How many people? I think you said there was 40 people total throughout the years, but how many people are in the ensemble
we had
right
22
now?
on Sunday.
22,
yeah.
So
it was fun.
That's a big ensemble to have to manage.
I'll tell you something funny about it. It was this venue that we played. We told them we needed a tent in case it rained or whatever. It was a lot of fun. The tent they gave us, we fit. Let's see, our drummer and bass player and keyboardist under the tent. So that, if you can imagine, that left like 19 of us.
Yeah, it's like a 10 by 10 tent.
It was so hot on Sunday. It was so hot on Sunday.
I know.
But I'm loving that. It's like talstop.com, and we got basically a gig just about every weekend for the next 2 months.
Yeah, I think the one I always really like is because it's so easy to get to and it's so open. Is you do and I think this is either the second or the third year you've done this, but you do the Patriot Place.
We're doing that this Sunday. Yes.
Is it this Sunday?
This Sunday at 3:00.
Wow.
And we just do like an hour, so we'll play like 9 songs.
And that's just open. That's just out to the public.
Yeah. And, where it's going to be is. Where Bar Louie is?
Okay,
yeah. Outside of Bar Louie. It's kind of cool because there's, some buildings sort of surrounding it, so you get some acoustic reflections,
Yeah, right. And no electric instruments are allowed.
No electricity, no microphones, no amplifiers. One thing is, if you had a group this big and everybody had an amplifier, first of all, mixing that would be insane, right? And then also it definitely would turn into volume wars.
Right.
Well, I mean, part of it is we have to work with a drummer that will play to the group and won't try to overpower us,
which is easy to do with Bonham-style drumming.
Right. One of the tricks is we put the louder instruments in the back of the formation.
Yeah.
And...
That's pretty standard, actually.
Right. Absolutely. So, we just get the balance through how we set up the group and just everybody's using their ears.
Nice.
I love it.
Nice. Yeah, absolutely. All right, bud. I'll probably come by on Sunday.
That's great.
I'll see if I can do it. I got to check. My daughter's in softball. My son is in baseball. And, she has 3 games and 2 practices a week.
Wow.
And he has 2 games and, 2 practices a week. Wow. Plus school, plus all this other junk they're doing. It's we're really, we signed them both up for sports, and they love it.
Yeah.
But, boy, does it take up time. Even she has a game, on Sunday. Yeah. It's you don't even get the weekends off. He has a game on Saturday. She has a game on Sunday. I have to see when it is because... if they don't conflict, I'd love to come down to Patriot Place and check out.
I mean, there's 7 more shows this season, so if that one doesn't work out.
I think I posted on my Facebook page, even if you're not on Facebook, I think you can go to my page and take a look at it. Yeah. I think I took a picture of that card you gave me, and that has all the dates. And you can always go to the website.
Yeah, I may have the card. Look at that.
Oh, yeah, right there. So, well, that one's over. Oh, yeah, so Patriot Place on Sunday, and then Paradise Cafe on the 6th. That's in Dedham. St. Susanna's on the 13th. That's in Dedham. Grange Hall in Norfolk. That's on the 20th. This is in June. The Mother Brook, I love that place. They took the old, They took, is that the Avery School, right?
Yes,
they took the old Avery School and turned it into because they built that new school behind the high school.
Yeah.
And I think this is the old school, and when you have a big auditorium / gymnasium like that.
I mean, the whole the auditorium is excellent, but there's they have there's a lot of rooms. They were doing a thing there at the same time the Telestop was playing. Dedham School of Music.
Right.
It's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
I'll tell you the funny thing about Mother Brook too is that a couple weeks ago I played a gig there opening for Harvey Reid, the guy that invented the third hand capo. And I got to tell you, when I was going there, I was just so nervous. This guy was a big influence on me, right? You know what I mean? Like I studied his music and everything, and I was going there, and I realized I'm just nervous. I'm just gonna meet this guy, right?
Yeah.
And then I'm like, I also have to play and open up for him.
Yeah.
And I was pretty nervous, but what a great guy. He was such a great guy, and such an amazing player.
Yeah.
So anyway, that was that.
Mother Brook. That's a great venue.
Yes.
And then a VH1 All-Star Jam in Hyannis on the 5th of July. And then the Orpheum Theater in Foxborough on 7/11.
That's the big one. It's all go because after the Orpheum Theater, then we take basically a year off. We'll start rehearsing again like in March of 2016.
Right.
I think it's
it's seasonal.
It's seasonal, and it's easier to get people to commit to it and to do the work. There's a lot of work learning all the material.
Yeah.
It's easier to get people to do that
when there's a beginning, a middle, and an end.
Exactly, and then you got the rest of the year.
You got the rest of the year. Yeah, it's like baseball season or football season or whatever.
Yeah.
You go to a little bit of training, then you go out, you play a few games, and then you're done for the rest of the year.
Yeah, and it's like a family in Telestop. So and there'll be all sorts of people that you don't necessarily see them all year, and then
I'd say
really
probably
great.
half the group have been in like all 3 years, right? Or maybe a third of the group.
It might be out of the 22 that we have right now. I'm going to say there's maybe 9 or 10 that have been in all 3 years, and there's some turnover in people's lives. People will leave and then come back. Like somebody couldn't do the second season.
It's whether or not they're available.
Right,
sure.
exactly.
Yeah.
But as it goes on though, we're really finding the right people and bringing back people that.
And I'm sure the ensemble gets tighter and tighter and tighter because you're doing the songs over and over and over, and
Absolutely.
You start to anticipate things where it's like a little bit. A little bit more up in the air.
Yes. At first, we're like, how are we going to pull this off?
Yeah.
That's another thing about Telestop is that it's not like we're handing out music to people. The deal is, you're a musician, go learn the tune.
You got to show up ready.
Yeah, show, and then everybody's contributing their own part. Whereas there may be a lot of different guitar parts on the record. It's like pick off 1 or 2 and see what you like. Try them out at the jam. So that part of it, as time goes by, and people figure out, oh, this is what I'm going to contribute to this particular song.
Right.
It becomes easier. And the funny thing is, I'll say that by we do the arrangements in an exacting way. Like the form is exact. If a part goes 5 times instead of 4, we're going to do it exactly like that. In a way, it's a lot of work to there's a lot of nuance to the arrangements, but it makes it possible because I want to say if we were trying to homogenize them, it would actually make things more complicated. So it's like everybody knows if you can play it with the record and follow that form, that's what we do. Right.
Rather than trying to invent new arrangements and then really be lost.
Right. Yeah.
It's like just play what's on the record, and then everyone knows what to be responsible for when they show up.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah. Plus, it's too big to be sitting there and giving lessons to everybody.
Right.
It's like you just don't, it's too big, too unwieldy.
Right.
You do have to rely on individual responsibility.
Yes.
And then just hopefully when everyone hits the note, we're all on the same page.
Yes. It's cool too. We do the alternate tunings, and when you hear 8 or 9 guitarists all playing
Yeah.
dad guy and
Yeah.
playing these. It's pretty rich. There's another thing I'd say about Talistop is the stereo spread.
Yeah.
We're just, I'll say this. In 2015, when people listen to music, just about under any circumstances, they're really listening to speakers.
Right.
They go and they see a live band play, but there's even in the classical music tradition, I'd say until the 1970s, 1980s, you'd see an orchestra and they'd play with no amplification.
Right.
And then they realized, well, we've got this great technology, it'd be so much easier, let's mic the soloist. That's cool, but everything that people are hearing, they're hearing speakers, and it's really refreshing to hear,
Right.
all these instruments. You're just hearing the sound of the instruments. There's no reinforcement. The stereo spread then, it's so detailed.
So you must have to spend a little bit of time working out dynamics and how loud people are going to play,
Yeah,
just
a lot
to
of
get
it
a
is
little bit of a mix, moving people around,
Yeah.
like you said, to the back and to the front.
Yes. Yeah,
and
the
spreading
formation
and
is
spreading
is
it out.
huge.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So, at Patriot Place, you're out there with like an X's and O's, like setting up.
Right, well, every time we play, we have to figure that out
Right.
for that particular. And so it's a slightly different instrumentation every time that we play.
Right.
So we have to sort of plan. Okay, this is how we're going to get our sound. But everybody's using their ears. That's the
Right.
great thing. So.
Right. No, it's. I've seen some video clips and I haven't had a chance to make it to a show, so maybe I think this Sunday.
Yeah,
I'll make it over to the Patriot Place one.
it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, it'll be good. All right, bud. Thanks for stopping
Thank
by.
you so much for.
Thanks for stopping by, guys. As always, rock on. Maybe we'll do a little blues.
Do I have game back? Can I get game back?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Hold on a second here. We'll move you.